telling people, hey, take this low interest adjustable rate and you can refinance in a couple years. Okay? And now, the thing is, they didn't say, assuming that you still have the same job and the market's still good and the economy hasn't turned and credit's still available, they forgot to put all those ifs, ands, and buts in there. Okay? So they materially misrepresented the potential to refinance and keep those low adjustable rates. Because the pitch went something like this. Hey, you can get a fixed rate at 6.5%, okay, but you can get this adjustable rate at 2.5%, and next year it might go up 2%, so 4.5%. The year after that, it might hit 6.5%. It could take 3 or 4 years before you get past that fixed rate, and then you can just refinance with another adjustable rate. Okay, isn't that great? Yeah, lots of people fell for that. Why? Because they don't have business degrees. They aren't given the ifs, ands, and buts. Okay? They're listening to these professionals in suits whose job it is to issue mortgages with all kinds of paperwork that says to the consumer that these people have to tell the truth. They weren't telling you the truth. They were doing their job. Their higher-ups knew exactly what the pitch was. Now, they also misrepresented quite often the taxes and insurance due under the mortgages. Now, that's a crime too. It's all fraud. Because once again, misrepresentation of a material fact which a person relies upon when entering into a transaction is fraud. Fraud is a crime. Yet the media is telling us that the victims of fraud are the criminals, and that it's a really tight race between McCain and Obama. No one could be ever considering any third parties. The media tells us all kinds of things like that. Now, the media hardly ever tells you about the fraud problem. In fact, there's almost no mention of it. There's so much more to talk about, according to the media. There's sports, weather, entertainment news, presidential polls. 10,000 Americans getting thrown out in the street this year is not important news. To the media, that is. No, I said 10,000. It's 10 million. 10 million Americans. 2.5 million foreclosures filed this year. That's 10 million Americans losing their homes, losing their life savings. Now, the Miami Herald is one of the few good papers out there. They ran a series of articles, and since you're from this area, you might have seen them. They ran a series of articles exposing the fraud, okay, just like I just told you about. And the fact that everybody in government looked the other way when these people complained about it. I know people that kept on the people in government about doing something and were threatened themselves with being charged with crimes. Because, oh my goodness, we can't hold the criminals responsible. We must protect them. Now, how did that happen? That's because in 1946, there was a great movement to take away the ability of the public to present evidence of criminal conduct directly to grand juries. And of course, there was no amendment to the Constitution. Don't bother with that amendment process. We'll just pass a rule. We'll just tell people they can't do that anymore. You can still do it in a few states, but even in the states where it's specified, you're fighting an uphill battle to get before a grand jury. In the feds, it's almost a no-win chance to get to a grand jury. There's a couple angles, but you're supposed to be able to walk right in, say, I want to see a grand jury. They say, it's coming on Thursday. Okay, take a number. You go in, you present your evidence to a grand jury made of citizens who then decide if they want to hear more evidence or if there's enough evidence already to indict. And just imagine what would have happened if some of these people that were told, oh, your taxes and insurance are only going to be $200 a month on this home, and you can refinance in a couple years and get another 2.5%, 3% adjustable rate, and then it didn't happen, and they started complaining, and they went to a grand jury, and they said, here's what they told me, and here's their paperwork that said my taxes and insurance would be $200 a month, and you know what? It was $600 a month. Okay? Now, what would happen? A grand jury of citizens, do you think You might indict somebody for committing fraud in that situation? Right, I think so too. Do you think if some of these bankers and loan officers could have been facing indictment, they would have pulled this trash? No, I don't think so. Do you think if law enforcement, by the way, if you report crime to anyone and they fail to take action, they have just committed a felony. Okay? That's part of the law no one knows about, no one talks about. Every complaint made to every member of law enforcement about fraud that they did not act on, they have just committed actually 2 felonies. Okay, I would say they're accessories after the fact, as well as failing to act under what's called misprision of felony. Anyway, this is something that went on, and everyone in government knew about this. Okay, when people are losing their homes, they are complaining to everyone in the whole chain of command. They're complaining to the papers. They're complaining to their local reps. They're complaining to congressmen. They're complaining to law enforcement. Okay? All this was ignored. Why was it ignored? It was ignored to throw 10 million Americans out in the street. As the professor talked about, there's a move towards globalization. How best do you achieve that? You impoverish the middle class. You make them beg for free trade. They don't mention that means you get to compete with countries that allow slave labor and child labor. And yes, there's countries that still allow slave labor, and many more that allow child labor. And that's what free trade gets you. Gets you that type of competition. So what can we do about this? Well, we can take action by trying to make sure the votes are counted accurately. We can take action by turning to new media. One thing I like to recommend all the time is, for instance, write your paper. You're subscribed to a paper. Write your paper. Say, I heard there was mortgage fraud committed. If you don't do an article talking about mortgage fraud in the next 10 days, I'm going to cancel my subscription. And if they don't, cancel it. Okay, people will respond to that type of tactic still, if enough people cancel. Turn to new media. Talk to your friends, family, and neighbors. Okay, the media has told us for years, don't talk about politics. Don't talk about religion. Why? Because they don't want people discussing the key issues. They don't fall for that trash. Talk about politics. Talk about religion. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Okay. Once again, McCain and Obama and the Democrats and the Republicans all voted in favor of this bailout bill. They didn't want any investigations into the causes. They didn't want any deliberation on how best to handle the situation. They just wanted to rush a big inflationary bailout bill through to pay off some rich bankers while, once again, 10 million Americans are being thrown into the streets. I only have one word for that. That's evil. Do you want to vote for evil?
No.
Hell no. Will you go quietly into the darkness like the Germans and the Italians did before World War II? Or will you stand up now and say, I will not support evil. I will not do it. I will not waste my